Sex. We love it, and so did the Romans. But Roman sexuality was quite unique, quite different from our modern ideas of sex as something reserved to intimate settings. The Romans would unpack it right in your face, where everyone could see it. Sexual scenes were common in the Roman world. Erotic images appear on walls, lamps and pendants shaped like, well, massive schlongs were common goods produced in massive numbers. Sexual graffiti shows up on taverns, bathhouses. To us, it can look almost absurdly direct, as if the Romans had no concept of subtlety. Nudity is a very common sight on Roman coins too. There are no shortage of naked chests, Venus for example gently dropping her veil exposing her round butt, and an uncomfortably high number of naked muscular dudes, like Zeus, Hercules, Sol. Sometimes they are seen covering their goods with some blanket, but in other instances, well, they just let them out to catch some air. And few objects capture this relationship with the erotic better than the spintria. These were small Roman tokens with very explicit sexual scenes on one side and Roman numerals on the other. They didn't just show elegant scenes of nudity. Spintria showed two people very much in the middle of the action. Spicy. They might look like coins, but they weren't. They were some kind of token, and their purpose is still under debate. Were these porno coins, quote-unquote, used in brothels? Were they menus of sexual positions, gaming pieces, political jokes about Roman morality laws? What were they actually for? The most widespread interpretation is that these spintriae were brothel tokens. This idea suggests they are a reaction to the public morality laws from the time of Emperor Tiberius. These laws tried to implement a standard model of how a, let's say, good Roman citizen should behave, claiming a respectable citizen shouldn't go to certain places of vices. One of the precepts of these laws was that the image of the emperor was something dignified, that it should not be taken into dirty places like brothels or latrines. Roman coins carried the imperial portrait, so bringing regular money into these spaces was actually a punishable offense. But the Romans, always so creative when regulations got in the way of doing what they wanted, they found a very Roman solution. Okay, if you can't bring a coin to a brothel, that's fine. You pay the owner of the brothel with real money somewhere else. You then receive the spintria as a proof of payment. You went inside the brothel with just the token. You handed that token to the prostitute in exchange for the service. Technically, it's all within the confines of the law. Another interpretation is the menu theory. This idea appeared after the first brothels of Pompeii were excavated. Frescoes showing sexual scenes that are quite similar to the positions represented on these tokens were found, and someone came to the amazing conclusion that each prostitute may have specialized in a particular act. So the customer would first pay, say what his carnal desires of that day were. He would then receive a token with the image of that act. He then only had to turn the spintria around, look at the number on it, and then go to the room marked with the same number, where the specialist would be waiting for him. This theory probably became popular because it explains the erotic images very directly, right? The images tell you what you are buying, the number tells you where to go, and the brothel becomes something like a fast food joint of sexual acts. Fast if I may put it that way. Oh my god, I'm gonna get demonetized for this. The problem is, this interpretation reveals a misunderstanding of Roman visual culture, of Roman art, and just how Romans viewed sexuality. Never mind the fact that the emperor tried to regulate public morals, we're exploring here the actual everyday culture of everyday Romans. So, erotic images were simply part of their broader artistic language, in which sex was represented much more openly than we are used to seeing it today. Just like you wouldn't be offended today, right now, if I showed you an image, for example, of an Olympic weightlifter, and when seeing this image, you would probably associate it with ideas of strength, of power. A Roman wouldn't see anything wrong with, for example, an image like that of the god Priapus, well gifted the man, right? With his gigantic phallus. They would have seen it as a sign of masculinity, of good health. And when we see it under this new light, the sexual image of the spintria stops really having this shady sexual tone to it. That's a modern interpretation. It becomes an image of a pleasant activity, because that's exactly what it was. Now, we shouldn't go to the other extreme and fall for the typical trope that Rome was simply an all-out orgy. It's not like people would be openly talking about sex everywhere and with everyone. The social situation and the people you were talking to still mattered, but it would have been maybe like a much more casual topic. In any case, the question still stands. Let's look back at the spintria. Were the spintriae actually used as brothel tokens? Archaeological context helps us here, the places where these are found. Spintria in Pompeii are not tied to brothels, they are instead mostly found in bathhouses, which is very interesting because baths are not brothels, even if prostitution could happen around them. Now, Roman baths had changing rooms with shelves or like little cubicles where you could leave your belongings. And if many people were using the same space, bathhouses were public spaces, it was always busy, you needed a way to remember which spot was yours, where your stuff was. So one very practical theory is that spintria were simple number tokens. You left your clothes in a certain place, received a token with the matching number, and then used it to recover your things later. And this is backed up by real evidence. The suburban baths in Pompeii. When these baths were excavated and they got to the changing rooms, frescoes were found on the walls, and they show little baskets or storage boxes, each marked with a number. And above them, there are, surprise, surprise, erotic scenes with different sexual positions. This is incredible evidence because it shows like exactly the same combination we see on the spintria, right? Sex scene plus number. So maybe the spintria were not brothel payment proofs after all, or sexual menus. Maybe they were simply bathhouse locker tokens. And the erotic images, they were not instructions, but maybe just a funny way to help you remember where you left your stuff. If you've ever been to Pompeii, you know the Romans were very fond of these naughty jokes, it's everywhere. Once again, it simply wasn't a big deal for them. Dirty jokes were a little bit of a plebeian thing, but it was fine. These kinds of utility tokens were incredibly common in the Roman world. Another common term for these is tesserae, and they could serve all kinds of practical uses, as tickets for a public event, gaming pieces, some kind of access token. They were made out of different materials. Copper, lead, clay was used too, and the erotic spintria were only one type within a much wider family of numbered Roman tokens. Other tesserae from roughly the same time period also have numbers on the reverse, but instead of sexual scenes, they actually show completely different images. Stuff like portraits of the gods, mythological figures, cute little scenes, and even portraits of the emperors. Good luck trying to make a brothel token with the face of the emperor. So they permeated all parts of Roman urban life, and any minimally complex system like controlling access to an event or a bathhouse locker token, these required something like these tokens to make it easier to organize something with lots of people in it. And the demand was huge. For example, thousands of tesserae were necessary to control the access, for example, to an arena, to gladiatorial matches, to watch the games. You couldn't just buy tickets at the door for such spectacles. You had to get access to tesserae from social connections, and these events could hold thousands of people, so imagine the number of tokens that were necessary. I know, you wish you would listen to me here confirm that the Romans were some freaky perverts, that Bigus Dicus was indeed a real Roman, and that tesserae were part of a complex system in place in Roman brothels, but sadly these are simply another token that helped the Romans navigate their surprisingly complex urban life. So, what do you think? Do you think tesserae are just tokens? Or am I wrong and they are actually connected to brothels? I would be curious to read what you have to say in the comment section. Alright, I hope you enjoyed yet another episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon. Let me give a special thank you to all of my amazing channel members and Patreons for their generous support. This channel would not be the same without your help. And if you would like to be part of this list, have early access to my videos when they are uploaded to YouTube, and a series of other perks, make sure to check out my Patreon page and my members tab on YouTube. Thank you very much.